He just started this agency game not too long ago.
I was 18 years old when I first started. I started by doing websites and SEO for used car dealerships.
If you could go back to yourself, like, I don't know, 2 years ago and say, hey, dummy, do this instead.
Significantly lower your expectations and of how quick it's going to be and how easy slash hard it's going to be. And also slow down.
The old 15K deal that you signed up. Let's talk a little bit about like what that process looked, bringing in that client, kind of
Yeah.
what you learned through that.
A lot of this specific deal came from luck, but I would have not had that luck if I had not gone out and taken action.
Yo, it's Frankie Finn. Beach mode engaged. Looms loaded, AI's humming. Let's go!
What is up, all my talented, good looking, most of you guys are attractive agency motherfuckers out there. I brought on our man George because George is celebrating a big breakthrough. George, am I allowed to say numbers? Can we say numbers here? Or would you
Yeah.
rather that? So
Yeah.
George just had the old 15K day for him. And as you can see, George is like 10 years old. So, he just started this agency game not too long ago. George, for those of you guys who don't know, has a company called Nail. They help home services with, stuff like AI to help basically convert more of the stuff that's in their pipeline. And firstly, my man, obviously, like, welcome to the show. I want to say we're excited to have you. There we go. There's the shocker for those of you guys who don't know. So let's talk. Like, I know you had this big breakthrough, and we'll get there in a second. But I want to go back because you're relatively new. Although I know you haven't been doing this just for 5 minutes and you've been working at, but I want to take me back to some of the struggles of getting an agency off the ground because I feel like this is sold by a lot of the quote unquote gurus as it's so easy. Anyone can do it. Just send a couple DMs. You'll be a millionaire. And I very rarely in practice meet people where that's their real world experience. So take me back to a little bit of the struggles and some of the challenges of just figuring this stuff out.
Yeah. I kind of got into the whole industry as kind of that thing. I'm pretty sure I saw an ad of someone like, I don't know who was trying to sell like, hey, you can get into digital marketing and make all this money and blah, 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 blah. And I was like,
Make
I want to do
bank.
that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, let me do that. I want to make money. But I was 18 years old when I first started. And it was kind of the same thing. Like I was kind of, and again, I'm not saying like this person was wrong in giving me this information, but knowing what I know now, I kind of came into it with that exact same expectation of like, oh, let me like put together this thing and just tell people that I like sell this service and then just contact as many people as possible. And then like I'll be a millionaire.
Yep.
And I can't, like I said, I was 18 when this started. And so I really had no legitimate business knowledge. Like I knew kind of like how I was like, okay, I get how business works, but I didn't know anything about really anything. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't really know how to sell something. I didn't really know what the difference was between half the shit I was even selling. Like it, because I just white labeled everything and I was like, oh, white label it, I'll sell it. It's great. Um, so I mean, I got into it really young. Still am really young, but it was kind of that thing of like, oh, let me just do this on the side and make all this money and just like live this lavish lifestyle and just not have to do anything ever. And obviously that's not the case at all. And so when I started, I had like this tells you how much I really didn't know about marketing in and of itself too. I started by doing websites and SEO for used car dealerships, which if you know really anything about the used car industry, like sure a nice website is good and like SEO sure, but like it doesn't really actually bring results. Like it's kind of a vanity thing. And
Mhm.
like I thought that I was like, oh my family's been in the car biz. I know a lot about cars. Let me I know a decent amount about the car business. Let me like try this thing. But I didn't really understand anything about marketing. And so I was like trying to bring these vanity metrics towards these used car businesses. And I did that for, I mean, I started like officially started. I like how you kind of say sometimes like I opened up, but I didn't really open up. I just told people I had stuff to buy, but nobody bought it, right? So I opened up in February of 2023, around there, and the first like I don't even know, probably up until around December of 23, I was just like cold calling people, trying to offer these services, trying to do this and that, trying to reach out to all these people. And like, obviously it didn't work because my offer was terrible. And I was like trying to offer something that really didn't matter to a lot of these people. And I was like 18 and didn't know how to talk to anybody, 19 and I didn't know how to talk to anybody. And it was just terrible. And so,
You know, the courage to get rejected. So we're gonna give you some points for that.
I wouldn't say courage. I would say ignorance, but same thing.
Right.
So
We'll take
that
ignorance.
happened, and then I kind of like realized that that was my problem of like I'm going after the wrong industry and like I'm offering the wrong thing. So I was like, well, this is really all I know how to offer because it's my white label, whatever. So let me transition. And while I was doing this whole car dealership thing, I was still needed to make money, and so I was doing sales at a local seamless gutter company in my hometown over the summer while I was taking a break from college. And this was kind of like my first introduction into like real business and like sales and like how to actually do all this stuff. And so I got in and I actually did really well. Like, I don't believe in the term natural born salesperson, but I think just I have like an affinity to talk to people well. And so I think that kind of carried me through. And then I just kind of learned the actual sales tactics along the way. Even then, I look back now and I'm like, God, you could have made so much more money if you just did like these three things different. But either way, so I actually did pretty well in gutter sales and made a decent amount of money for the summer and was really happy about it. And so I was like, hey, why don't I take this one thing that I like doing or thought I liked doing or just like was, doing at the time, which is this digital marketing thing, and pair it with this other thing that I just realized I'm good at and I actually really enjoyed too, which was the seamless gutter industry. So I basically did that and then kind of changed my business from car dealerships to gutter businesses. And I thought it was like the biggest thing in the world at the time. I was so scared. But I started doing that and then basically just same thing, reaching out to people, doing anything I could to kind of get clients. Got a few clients, lost a few clients, kind of up and down, whatever. But did start kind of like making a decent name for myself in the industry. The agency never really got that big. I think we capped out at like 10K a month, but that was like for like 2 months, maybe. I don't really know. So really never took off that crazy. But I with content, I did a lot of podcasting and kind of was more of an influencer than a marketer at that point. So some people knew who I was. And I think close to the end of last year, so about this time last year, I was like trying to figure out, I was like, okay, I've been doing like this, I've been in the gutter space now for like, 8 to 9 months, and I really haven't made a whole lot of traction. And I want to figure out like what I'm doing wrong. And so I think I made like a post in a Facebook group, and then Frankie like messaged me on Facebook Messenger or something, and was like, hey, like, let me send you this 10-minute long voice note of like the things that you should be thinking about. And so then that's how me and Frankie met. And he kind of, you were kind of telling me just all these basic things about business of like, you need to be like, create an offer and not just say, hey, I sell SEO. Hey, I sell websites. Like you need to tell these people what it's actually doing. Yeah. It's like, oh, you're right. That's so smart. Why didn't I think of that? And so a lot of these little things, but you also started teaching me about close to the whole solutions, which I wasn't really, it was kind of lost on me what that whole concept was. And so towards the end of last year, I started experimenting with these close to the whole solutions, things that just brought business quicker and easier and more effectively to these gutter companies than waiting 6 months for SEO to kick in or building these websites, running these ads, whatever. So I started doing that mostly in kind of like the GHL side of things, database reactivations, things like that, really basic stuff, email campaigns. And when I was kind of doing this, I really had the idea of like kind of transitioning the whole business to doing mostly that and less of the traditional digital marketing lead gen. And at this time, I was abroad in Barcelona while I was doing that and kind of like making this transition. I was talking to a lot of people, asking a lot of questions. And I caught the attention of a few big players in the gutter space, big influencers, people who own large coaching organizations, one big agency, lead gen agency in the space. And they were like, hey, we want to just like kind of hear what you got going on. We've heard some buzz going around. Let me hear what you've got going on. So then we met, long story short, ended up getting into this big old partnership where we were going to come together and kind of create a whole separate venture. and like do a lot of this more AI automation, close to the whole solutions, conversion focused business rather than, bringing in brand new strangers. So that was pretty cool. I realized it just really wasn't the best fit for me. Nothing against like the partners or anything like that. I think that they're amazing people, but it just really wasn't what I wanted. And so left that, ended up moving on to the roofing industry where we pretty much do the same thing. Like Frankie said, just focusing more on the conversion aspect, moving in the roofing industry and just started doing the same thing. And we came across a few clients that I have. One of them referred another one, which referred another one, which ended up being a really large franchise location. And as of just earlier this week, we signed a deal to do like a 10 location pilot program for our AI voice receptionist for this franchise, which ended up being like a $15,000 deal plus $3,000 a month to gather some data. And then that can spark into significantly more, obviously, because they have like 145 locations or something like that. So that's kind of why I'm sitting here today.
There you go, buddy. That's a great synopsis of taking us through your journey. I wonder if you could share a little bit about the lesson. One of the questions I have for you is like for because you started this from zero, and you told me some shit that I think is some awesome real shit. You said you were running this from your dorm room or whatever, or your
Yep.
apartment or whatever it was. And you said it was cold as a motherfucker in there, and you were making cold calls standing in front of the oven while it was open just so
Yeah.
you wouldn't freeze your little teeny tiny nuts off over there. I wonder if you could share a little bit, like what are some of the maybe the hardest lesson or some of the hardest lessons that you've picked up along the way that if you could go
Mhm.
back to yourself like, I don't know, 2 years ago and say, hey, dummy, do this instead, like,
Right.
what are some of the big things you picked up along the way?
Um, yeah, like you said, I started from literally zero. Like I knew nothing about anything. And so I was really just going out there and just doing before really thinking, which is kind of what you're supposed to do, right? Like it's a lot of people get bogged down in the thinking and the strategizing and the this and the that, and they don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So I applaud my younger self for at least like going out there and taking action and just trying to do something, even if it was the wrong thing. Like at least I was out there making it work, trying to make it work at least.
Yeah.
And like you said, like I started cold calling from like my dorm room. It was like a 10 by 10 little college dorm room. I was sleeping like this far away from another dude. And I was just cold calling in this room because that's what I did. I was like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, let me just see what happens. And I think beginning early days, like if I would have told myself something, it would have been to significantly lower your expectations and of how quick it's going to be and how easy slash hard it's going to be, and also slow down. Like don't I think early on and up until I mean even recently, like I put these vast expectations on myself and like these huge numbers that like these crazy numbers that just like have no actual substance to them of like what I want. Oh, I'm going to get to seven figures before I do this, this, and this, or I want to get to seven figures my junior year of college, whatever. Some like random stuff that really had no substance. Like there's no meaning behind it. It was just like, I just want to do this because I want to do it. Right. And I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I was like, oh my gosh, everyone, this is what I do. If I do this, then I'm crazy successful, and then everyone will think I'm cool. So, and I was in a rut for a really long time because of that. And I think, especially beginners, like one thing that you do is you rush because you think you have to. And you think there's a lot riding on it. Like, oh, if I don't get this done, if I don't do this, then the world's going to burn down and everything's going to suck. And that
Yeah.
made my journey, especially in the beginning, so much harder because it put so much unnecessary stress on myself and also made me go unnecessarily quickly so that I was doing all of the wrong things, right? Because I was trying to go so fast, I wasn't worrying about sitting down and thinking about, okay, what is my actual offer? What am I actually trying to provide these people? What am I actually trying to do? What do I want this business to look like in my life? Like none of that mattered because I was like, I just need to make money. I was told you can make money if you call people enough. And so I just started calling people, right? And so I think if I were to give myself like advice from a year ago or even 2 years ago, like it would just be to slow down and to really think more about what is the actual problem that you're solving and like how are you going to solve that, and realize that there's no like you're in a rush. You're in a rush and there's no reason for it. Like why are you going so quickly? What is this? what is the big deal here, you know? So
Yeah. Well, just so you know, you're not the only one who does that. I actually remember the first website I built way back in '06 with a buddy of mine. And I actually remember and when I say first website, I mean the first business website. I had a stupid personal website before that. But um I remember actually like imagining the Ferrari that the second it was built, it was going to bring me. I had no idea about traffic or conversion. I just thought, field of dreams, if you build it, they will come. Throw up the website, people are just going to start throwing money at you hand over fist, and was disappointed to find out I had two visitors to my site. One was me, one was a bot from China. And then I got a third visitor when I told my mom that it existed. And three visitors like wasn't too much to build on. And I hear that every day where like you said, where the expectations of just being sold that it's faster and easy and anyone can do it and just call
yeah,
enough people and it'll start clicking. And then, I get messages every day from people go, I sent, 30 messages. I'm not a millionaire. What am I doing wrong? And have barely kind of even scratched the surface. You mentioned something in there before. I want to talk about obviously your big win, but be dive a little more into that. But you mentioned something close to the whole conversion solutions. Obviously, you and I know what that is, but I wonder if you could kind of just share like your perspective on. So many businesses think they need more leads and they don't know what to fucking do with the thousands of leads they already got in the pipeline. Meaning, if somebody they don't know how to follow up with people, they don't know how to answer the phone, like they don't know how to generate referrals. Like there's so many leads in the machine that they don't know what they're doing with that. Very rarely do they actually need more leads before they start fixing the bucket that's leaking. I wonder if you could just talk about your thoughts on that, how you kind of see that differently now.
yeah. And I think like as a business, obviously we always need more people in the door. Like that's just how it works. But I think that a lot of times, especially in today's day and age, like I think getting people in the door is the easy part. I say that as if like I'm like the best lead generator in the world. Like, trust me, I'm not. But I think that getting people in the door, especially for other companies and especially for home service, like I think that's the easy part. Like you throw up a Google My Business profile and optimize it a little bit and get some reviews and get some word of mouth going. And like you've got a home service business, right? And like you're getting leads. Throw some ads and then you get some more, right? Like it's not that hard. But where I see a lot of people struggling, and like myself included, and uh, a lot of local service businesses, that's because that's just like how my background is. The problem isn't getting leads, like it's not getting new people in the door. The problem is taking those new people in the door and actually turning them into cash. Like I can even think when I was in gutter sales, like we would get so many calls every single day. And we would get so many web submissions from the ads and all these stuff. Like a lot of people were coming in the door, but relative to how many were coming in the door, a small fraction of those actually turned into paid jobs and like actual stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, we still did it. And I think, a lot of home service companies can kind of ride on the fact of brand, or like what they call brand of like, it's like the only gutter business in like a 30-mile radius that actually has like some decent, reviews or anything on Google. So it's like, okay, yeah, this is the one you go with. But I think that a lot of people get this misconception, like you said, of like, we need new customers. Like when sales are low, we need new customers. And I think that comes from kind of like, I'm in business school right now. And I think that that's kind of what's taught in a lot of business
Can
school.
I just say it's really funny that you probably had a bigger day this week than any of your college professors teaching you this shit will ever have in their lives, at least for
Yeah,
marketing, anyways. So,
literally. Um, Something to note. But I think that like especially in business school, like you're taught like you have a product. To get people, like to make money, you need to get new people in the door, and the relative amount of customers you have to the product you're selling, the price you're selling it, is like how you do it. And you just need to increase this amount of people, right? And a lot of people think of, like we said, getting brand new strangers every single day, right? And Frankie has this great analogy of like there's a business is like kind of like a golf course, especially when it comes to sales and services. It's like a golf course, right? And a lot of people and a lot of agencies try to drive the ball from 600 yards away every single day to get these people in the door. And yeah, some of them go in the hole and some of them don't. But a large percentage of them usually don't go in the hole. And so the challenge that I wanted to solve instead of driving people 600 yards over was, okay, how can I get those balls that have already been driven over and that are somewhere in between complete stranger and actual closed deal? How can I get that percentage of people to actually turn into a closed deal? And so Frankie really introduced this to me, like I said, about a year ago. And there's many ways you can do that. You can make it easier for that person that's getting driven from 600 yards away to go in the hole. So you can, in golf terms, you can create like a fancy ball that makes it easier for it to fly in the hole or something. I don't know. I don't play golf, but the way that we usually do that is through like connecting some sort of conversion mechanism or some sort of software to the actual ads or marketing that's being ran that just responds to the lead quicker, communicates with them a lot more effectively, qualifies them, and then actually puts them into the selling mindset and then gets them on this calendar, right? That's pretty much it. Or we can, take existing leads that already are in someone's CRM, run some sort of reactivation campaign. So the ones that might have fallen in the cracks in the past or just weren't ready at the time can then have the chance to, just move on to the.
Can I just give one example of how this can be true and most people don't understand this? So when I was doing the 90-day challenge thing in restoration, I had a dude who reached out to me and we did it over chat, but we had a really killer conversation. Like we talked for like an hour. And I don't usually text for an hour. Homie don't usually do that. But we did, and it was really super cool. And I was like, sure, this guy was going to move forward. And he did what often many of you guys have experienced. He ghosted me, and I never heard from him. And it was about 6 months later. All of a sudden, he sends me an email. He says, "Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to go." And I went like, it was a little strange for me because, like 180 days have elapsed between conversations, and I'm not even building the 90-day thing anymore because we did it, mission success. Like, I'm not trying to market a restoration agency at that point. And he said to me, when we sort of rekindled, he said, "Well, you didn't know this, but there was one really big job we did last year, and I've been fighting the insurance company forever, just trying to get fucking paid on it. And I knew that as soon as we got paid on this big job, I was going to reinvest it in marketing so we could grow. But I've been waiting on this check and waiting on this check and waiting on this check, and it finally showed up. So I don't know. We talked. I was a yes. Nothing changed in my mind, but I figured there wasn't really much to talk to you about until I got the money to actually pay you. But now I got the money. Let's go do it." And if you view sales as binary, yes or no, black or white, in or out, as most people do, as versus in the middle of a process somewhere along a spectrum, you like using a golf course as an analogy, that guy was like chipping distance and just waiting till I get the check. And then he's like, all right, now we're in. And in general, most businesses treat their no's, they treat their didn't close as the door is forever closed. You are no till eternity. You are a bad lead. You are a tire kicker. You're a dud. And sometimes that's true. There are people who will like waste your time, but there's a lot of times where those people, like certain circumstances, it can be as simple as like, I see it in like, so we got a guy in the kitchen remodeling who does something similar to what you do. A lot of times they look at a kitchen, then they get overwhelmed with options. They got to pick tiles and cabinets and blah, blah, blah. And they need to just step back for like 3 weeks to make sense of what do I actually want here? And then when they figure that out, if that person hasn't blown that lead, they may rekindle, but often they'll go to another company and close with a different company if you lack those sort of conversion mechanisms. So that was just a little aside I wanted to mention, is that there's plenty of reasons why people don't go through the hole now, but will in the near future if you play your cards right.
Yeah. Or would have gone through the hole otherwise, but didn't because the ball was dropped somewhere along the way because of a lack of processes, right?
Yeah, and I can give you one more example of that, just by the way.
Please do.
I was talking to Chris, and he was saying like one of the things he has to beat his roofers up. Some of his roofers will go drive to a job, and then instead of handing the person a written estimate, they'll go, "We'll get back to you," and it takes somebody in their office 3 weeks to send them the if it's like literally raining in the living room, they're going to go somebody who gives them an estimate today, not somebody who's like going to wait 3 weeks for the, the whole quote. And so he was like, give it to him now, now, not later. Right. And so,
Right.
if you run Facebook ads and generate that person more leads, or you do some SEO, they're still going to take 3 weeks to close an estimate. And so the biggest gap you can do in that company is reduce the time it takes them to go, here's how much it'll cost, not
Right.
get them more leads, not even hire new salespeople, right? Like, there's nothing that will move the needle as fast as that. So anyways, I just want
Exactly.
to throw that in there. Sorry, I cut you off. Anyways, please.
Well, you're good. I was thinking, and kind of off to an aside on that too. And I think that's a lot of what I struggled with earlier too, is I thought that like, oh, I provided these services and I brought leads in. So, and that's all I can do. Like, I don't do anything else. Like, this is what I do. Right. And I think that once you kind of have the mindset of like, my goal as a business is really just to make you more money. And I can kind of do that in any way that fits my skill set. Right. And that's scalable to an extent. Right. And so, like you said, like if a company that I'm working with and we set up all these systems that we know work as an aside, but I know that they're struggling with something else, like, okay, yeah, I might not be the person that's going to be able to fix their sales problem or give them an easier way to send out these quotes or something like that. But I can at least get them in touch with someone who can, or help kind of just on basic knowledge. Like, for example, that guy, like, okay, how about you try this? You don't have to do it for forever, but for a week, why don't you, have the salesperson go back into the truck, type up the estimate, and then walk it over to the person and say, all right, here's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Do you want to move forward? Yes or no? Right. Try that for a week and just see what happens and then kind of move on. And I think that once you take the perspective of like, I'm really just here to help this company and work alongside them and be more of like a partner rather than just a vendor. I think once you have that mindset, it can drastically accelerate your growth because you're open to so many more things, but also you're seen as more valuable because you're not just, they're like, hey, well, all of your leads suck and we're not closing anything. And you're like, well, sorry, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
If you have
We brought you
mindset,
good leads.
yeah, if you have that mindset of like, oh, that's not my problem, you need to go fix that yourself, then they're going to be like, okay, asshole, like we're going to go on to a different marketing agency because I think the leads are the problem. But if you can come with them with a different perspective, you become more valuable. So I think that's one thing that I've learned too, as well, is to be a little bit more, I don't want to say holistic, but just be a little bit more flexible in my, not in my services, but in my ability to help people in different ways that I may have not thought of before.
Yeah. So let's talk, because we're coming up a little bit on time, but
Yeah.
let's talk here a little bit about the big score of the week. The one you messaged me and told me you're all excited. I saw you jizzing in your pants a little bit. How old are you? 21?
Yeah.
So George is 21. You're still in college.
Yeah. Last year I'm a senior, so I have
So you're
like
doing this
semester and a half.
part-time on the side in addition to exams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you just had the old 15K deal that you signed up. Let's talk a little bit about like what that process looked, bringing in that client, kind of
Yeah.
what you learned through that.
Yeah. So I don't want to like toot my own horn really. I think that a lot of it came down to luck, which I don't think enough people talk about in the industry too. Like everyone wants to make themselves seem like they're the coolest shit in the world.
Yeah.
That they did everything and they grew the seed with their own bare hands and didn't have to do,
But I would also say part of your luck factor is that you're taking at bats. Like people who take at bats tend to get a lot luckier than ones who don't.
That's what I was just about to say, is I think a lot of this specific deal came from luck, but I would have not had that luck if I had not gone out and taken action, right? Like I think there's some quote somewhere that says the more action you take, the luckier you get. And I think that's 100% true with how this deal went out. But basically, I had a client that came on about mid-summer this year to get some sort of AI voice solution to help handle their call volume, relatively large fencing contractor, residential fencing contractor in Louisiana. And he's relatively connected in the industry as well. He used to run this big podcast, got a lot of friends, goes to all the associations, things like that. And he was I think one of my first, if not the first client that I had for kind of transitioning off from that big partnership that I told you guys about earlier. And so I was just trying to get money in the door and just trying to like build some relationships, build some case studies. And so I drastically undercharged him for what for what we were actually building. And in the process of doing that, I was like, God, this fucking sucks. I hate this. This is so stupid. I'm not getting paid anything for this. But I'm glad I did, because obviously that led to something great later. But he basically referred over his buddy, had gotten together, and he was just talking about like all the cool AI stuff that they were doing and this, and this. And this buddy of his was like, well, let me hear it. Let's hear how it works, all that stuff. So he heard it, and then I was like, I need to get in touch with whoever built that. Like, get me in touch with them ASAP. And so referred me over. That was about a month and a half ago. So a month and a half worth of back and forth, 4 different Zoom meetings, lots of emails back and forth. Just really trying to figure out what they were trying to do and what their goal was. But yeah, they basically, very large national residential franchise, wanted to dive into how to use AI to make. They know that there's balls being dropped because people aren't getting followed up with fast enough. People are, not getting their questions answered when they need to. Customer service is not the best. And AI can do all of those things a whole hell of a lot cheaper and a whole hell of a lot better than something like a call center or some sort of remote employee, something like that. And so they're obviously a very large brand, just crossed over like $1 billion in sales. So like very large brand, hundreds of locations throughout the United States. And so they wanted to kind of run like a test location, right? Or a test pilot that they're also running for a couple other solutions, I think. And just wanted to kind of see what the performance was like, what it was, didn't want to jump anything too quickly, which as I've kind of grown in the industry and grown in the space, I've realized that the bigger the ship, the longer it takes to turn, but the faster they're going to get to where they want to go. So even though it might seem like, damn, I got to wait 6 months for this thing to them to even figure out if they want to do this thing. Well, if you can wait 6 months and they end up doing what you want them to do, you can be, then that's when the, 0 to $1 million in 6 months actually happens, because then that's just how quickly these companies. But yeah, so running an AI voice receptionist, AI voice agent, test for about 10 of their locations. Pretty cool, very easy build, at least in my eyes, because I know I've been doing this, but they're not asking for a whole ton of stuff, complicated stuff, at least in the beginning, which is nice. So it'll be relatively easy to fulfill. And they just want data pretty much to see how it performs and then kind of go from there. But based on what they're telling me, they've tried a couple solutions already before. They've tried to even build one themselves, and nothing has really kind of lived up to their expectations. And at least during the demo that we gave for them about 3-4 weeks ago, very, very impressed with what we had. And it's just basic solutions that are, some AI providers that we string together, use GHL as kind of like the landing page for everything to connect it all together. But I don't want to give away all of my secrets, because there's a lot. I don't know who's going to watch this, but basic tools, but very cool stuff. And hopefully they turn into kind of an enterprise client, which would be really cool, because that would kind of, like I said, take me from 0 to hero pretty quickly.
Yeah, not just that, but if you ever want to run ads, your case study of look what I did for the $1 billion company is like usually going to perform better than, hey, I'm George, trust me, bro.
Literally.
Anyways, cool, dude. We're gonna call it time there because it's on the hour. I appreciate you coming on here and doing this, and for all you fine folks listening, let's give them a shocker on the way out to celebrate. And we appreciate you just kind of sharing some of those hard lessons. I think stuff like this, by the way, part of the reason I wanted to have you on is because I'm super proud to see your success. Obviously, like anytime our Wolfpack folks win, I'm obviously pretty stoked. It looks good on me, but I also wanted to show that your hardship and what you pulled through, because it wasn't just call somebody next to the oven and you're a millionaire. You persisted through a lot of stuff, and I think that's pretty awesome. So we appreciate you, brother.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Buy my book, or I will reprogram your smart fridge to only give you pizza with pineapple on it.